Okay, so welcome to The Way Hum with Michael Happy Murray, and I'm your host, Jocelyn Nixon, and we're here winding a path towards answers on the spiritual trail. That's basically
Yes,
what
we
we're
are.
doing
Yes,
here.
we are.
And
Well
so
said.
today, what we want to talk about is spirituality in the sense of how it compares to religion.
Uh-huh.
And then this really interesting concept that everyone's been talking about lately, where they're spiritually awake. So I want to unpack
Or
those two ideas.
spiritual awakening.
Yeah. Or
Right?
they've had a spiritual awakening. So kind of the noun and verb aspect of those things, right? Something that people are experiencing and this thing and what it is. So let's talk about that.
All right, I'd love to talk about these things.
Okay, beautiful. So the first thing I want to do, because, I'm of the age where when we talked about, oh, well, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, where
Right.
what that started being talked about, I'm going to say was in the 80s. And we called it New Age. So it was New Age thought thinking where people were talking more about spirituality and less about religion, where we were expanding our ideas of how we fit into the natural world. So when I hear about it, just because I was coming of age at that time, that's what I think of is New Age. But there was a movement even before New Age prior to that. And we won't go too far into that, but let's try and bring it forward. You're a little younger. Tell me what you think about. You're a tiny bit younger. What do you think about when you're thinking about spirituality or being spiritual versus religious?
Well, definitely, all of that sort of evolved for me as I was growing up because I didn't have any influence as a kid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like at home and stuff like that. Like I didn't go to church every Sunday.
Right.
There was no praying or there was nothing formal and there was nothing informal.
So your family wasn't religious?
No.
Okay.
Not in my perspective of it or in any way. Like I was baptized as a kid, but I feel like that was more so formal. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like anything spiritual or anything God or godly, that was never brought up in my household. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So like for me, any form of spirituality or religion, right, typically came through like spending the night at friend's house
Okay.
and going to experience church,
Okay.
let's say.
Well, that would be
But
religion.
that would be religion. But then aside from that, as a real young dude, like I was looking up at the stars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was hiking up in the mountains and I was sitting on the rocks and I was listening to life and watching life move right before my eyes. And I felt radically connected to it. And I
Okay.
felt one with it. I didn't know that could be spiritual or spirituality. It just seemed, it felt good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
And so, like, when someone's, because every once in a while, people are like, "Are you religious or are you spiritual?" I feel like I gotta get.
We still do this.
I feel
so we're
like
still
I
talking
feel like
about
I gotta
this,
get comfortable right now, and like we're settling in.
Let's both do it.
You know what I mean? It's like we're settling in because like I just came out of a meeting or something like that, and I was talking with a gentleman, and he goes, "Are you Buddhist or are you something or whatever?" And I just looked at him, and I'm like, "I'm you.
Okay.
Whatever you think that is, I'm you." Sure, I sway towards spiritual, let's say, but I think, when we throw that word out there, like, hey, have you ever had a spiritual experience? Hey,
Yeah.
You ever had a spiritual awakening? You know, it's like, I think first it's important for that person to understand what it means to them, what they think it means to them. And from there can come a beautiful, you know, dialogue of like what it means to each other.
Well,
You know, like
your
how
upbringing,
we talk.
yeah,
You
for
know?
sure. But your upbringing's a little different, I think, especially for people in our generation.
Yeah.
It's a little different because
Yeah.
most of us did have religious upbringing. We had people around us who called themselves Catholic
Yeah.
or, Protestant
Yeah.
or Baptist. And so we were brought up in this idea of what and how we should think about ourselves in relationship to a higher being.
Right. Right,
So,
right. We're steered
yeah,
as like, this is the way we are. This is the way you want to be.
well, this is the way.
Or something like that, you know?
No, just period. This is the way we are.
Yeah.
And it included the children.
Yeah.
It always included the children. And I get that because when you think that you understand what's going on, obviously you want to teach your children
Yeah.
your understanding.
Yeah.
You want what's best for them. A lot of people at that time, I don't think, thought, well, I got this from my parents. How do I know they were right? So we didn't ask those questions.
Oh, for
We just
sure. No
kind of
questioning.
Went along with it.
Yeah.
So most people, I think when they left that, when they rebelled against it because it wasn't working for them, maybe they went and sat out on a hill like you did and listened to the stars speak to them and thought, wait a minute, there is something here that I feel connected to that isn't talked about on Sunday or in the Sunday sermons. As a matter of fact, what do all those men that they do talk about have to do with my life anyhow?
Yeah.
And so that's usually, I feel like, how people rebelled, right? Mm-hmm. And as they were coming up, and again, I was brought up in a particular time, maybe that's how they then found themselves talking about this spiritual movement. Mm-hmm. Because if you remember, I think like Buddhism was introduced to the West in a large part, like 50s, 60s, it was where it started gaining. I think it was actually brought over in the late 1800s, but it really started gaining popularity and momentum.
Yeah.
In the 70s, I think, is where the momentum came in. So it was fairly new, but with that came some other thinking. Oh, wait, there isn't only this very narrow idea of Christianity in the world.
Yeah.
That's kind of in this country. But
Yeah.
in the world, there's
Yeah.
all these other things that are being thought about. And so I don't want to go too deep into this because I haven't done a paper or anything on it. So I'm just going to kind of look and see how it is that at least the Chat GPT talks about one versus the other.
Nice.
So here it says spirituality is a complex and multifaceted concept that can encompass a wide range of beliefs, practices, and experiences. At its core, it is often understood as the search for meaning, purpose, and connection beyond the material world.
Beautiful.
How does that square with how it is that you're living life?
It does.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It does.
Okay.
And what really squares is pretty much like, can you read the last sentence again, please?
Absolutely. It says, at its core, spirituality is often understood as the search for meaning, purpose, and connection beyond the material world.
Okay.
It seems to me that that's what we've been talking about, Michael, with you.
It is.
And how it is that you have experienced things.
It is.
Even
and
with your near-death
that was
experience.
like my life.
Right.
Since I was a kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because and also too, when you said the word new age thinking,
Yeah.
what came to my mind instantly was new wave music. But anyway,
Maybe there's a connection.
there's always a connection with music. It's the universal language of love.
It is.
Right? If it moves you and you feel it, something's going on and the message is conveyed.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But so like I feel that that's been my whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is as a young kid, I made a conscious decision to seek something that I had no idea what I was seeking.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was seeking many words for it could be like truth, you know, wisdom,
Right.
enlightenment, illumination,
Right.
light, the unknown, stuff that you can't measure, what's
Stuff
timeless,
that you can't touch.
stuff that you can't touch, but you feel it, you know what's going on.
Right.
Right. And so what was cool was in my house, none of that shit was talked about. And I'm pretty emphatic, so it kind of makes you want to cuss, right? Like none of that was talked about, but all around me there was influence with it, right? Growing up in New Mexico, there was Native American influence, and then around there was always that given of quote unquote religious influence. You got to call yourself something. You got to go here on Sunday, or you know, or do this on Friday, or whatever. What I knew as a young kid, right, and I caught on to this rather quickly. On my mother's side, I saw a paradox, right, because my grandfather is from India, and my grandmother is Spanish. Okay. So it was like, you know, my grandfather didn't wear a turban. My great-grandfather wore a turban.
Okay.
So it was East and West.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that right away.
Very interesting.
Oh, man, it was totally trippy, right? It's like Catholicism and Sikh or Hinduism, you know, which is Catholicism and Hinduism. That stuff is pretty opposite, right? In some ways, or at least in like an open-minded sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so...
Well, Hinduism has like 1,000 gods. Like 1,000 million gods,
like 330,000 of them or something like that. You know what I mean? So and
each one more interesting than the last.
How can you remember all of that? You know what I mean? So so like I saw, and so to me it was a whole world of discovery, you know, and I enjoyed it. So I spent my life seeking. Right? Up until my third near-death experience, it was about seeking as many truths or ways or paths as I could. Yeah. Just in an effort to see what's going on. Right? And then when I got hit in the head, you know, all that got simplified and clarified, and all of a sudden it was all clear. Right. And I was not involved in that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. That did not come from my thinking. So for me, the spirituality element of seeking meaning, point, and purpose, or having a desire to understand meaning, point, and purpose, which hopefully everyone ponders, everyone feels, everyone asks, right? Like, what's the meaning of all this? What is my point? And what's the purpose of all this chaos, all this war? You know what I mean?
Or even just on the inside, what is this that I'm feeling?
Yeah. Why is this going on? Where does it come from?
Right. Why is there seemingly something missing, right? Like what is this thing that I'm not connecting with?
That I can't put a word to.
Why do I feel out of alignment?
Yeah.
Right?
I can't put a word to it.
Right.
I can't go to Target and get it.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't read a book.
Or in those days, Kmart.
Yeah. Oh yeah, blue light special. Wouldn't that be rad if you had a blue light special? If your light was blue, you know what I mean? Like cobalt blue, bam, there you go. You know, so to me, Spirituality, one of the aspects of spirituality for me is being free from me.
Okay. Free from you.
The moment that I'm free from me,
that me is probably ego.
yeah,
when you're
that
thinking of
me
that
is
me.
my concept of me. Am I, like, because me, I don't like to label,
Yeah.
right? I don't like to call myself anything.
Okay.
You know what I mean? In a sense of like aligning with one side versus another. I love all sides.
All sides.
Right?
How many sides do you have, Michael?
I don't know.
Okay.
That changes every day or every moment. Or
However many there are, you're in line. You like to be in alignment with them all.
I love it all.
Yeah. I
You know
get
what
that.
I mean?
Give me a more practical idea of what it is that you're speaking of. Like how people might be able to really understand that. Like what do you think people are thinking in terms of their various selves that may need to be aligned, that they may want to align?
Or could benefit from aligning.
Right.
Right. Now, let's just take something like, say, like and dislike.
Okay.
One of the things that causes some pretty, major conflict between religion and spirituality is one liking the other or one disliking the other.
Huh. Okay.
Right? Like I'm a Baptist and that person is a Catholic or a Protestant or, whatever, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or like in spiritual world, I know you and I have seen this, some spiritual one-upsmanship.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I can hold that pose harder than you, so that makes me higher than you, or something like that.
Interesting.
So when I'm free from that, right?
Sure.
When I'm free from all of that, I'm surfing with the spirit in spirit world.
Okay.
And everything is beautiful. Everything is accepted.
Okay.
Everything, for me, all roads lead to the same place.
You're so right. I remember there was a time where, I'm trying to come through up and bring us up until the present moment and how we are experiencing this idea of spirituality. But I remember when, people would be like, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And then the religious people caught on and they were like, we're all spiritual.
Yeah. Right. And there begins some religious one-upsmanship or some spiritual one-upsmanship.
Right. Like, yeah. So
it's petty.
Because maybe the spiritual folks were kind of like nose in the air. We're beyond that. We're beyond this idea of religion.
Yeah.
Because look, we're all trying to
do the
evolve.
best we can every day.
We're trying to evolve. I think we're trying to get those answers that you're talking about, right? And connect some dots. And so it's, hey, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. And then I thought that was a great comeback because we are all spiritual.
Yeah.
Right. So we absolutely are. Obviously, I think the spiritual people were saying, I don't do religion. I'm really trying to understand myself in relationship to the world and to this universal idea of
something. Can't quite pin it, man. You know what I mean?
Of something.
But it's something.
But it's bigger than me. And it's outside of these ideas of something or material world that we talk about, right? I don't know. I stayed away from it. I knew I wasn't religious.
Yeah.
I did not escape the rebellion of religion as a young person. So I really had to think about the ideas that I were being taught and whether or not I could embrace them or make them work for me. I tried them on.
Oh yeah, me too. My whole life from 11 to 43.
I put that.
I had to put that costume on.
Yeah.
I had to get into that character. I had to check it out. I had to see what the buzz was in whatever it was. And I got to live in different places.
Right.
Right. Like, a couple of islands and, go hang out on an island, go hang out in, where they handle snakes and you know,
Wow.
speak in tongues and all. Just
Was that down south?
yeah,
In America?
yeah.
Right.
No, not South America. In the South.
What, like the South Pacific?
No, like the what?
Southern states
The southern states in
of America.
America.
Yeah.
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 You know, there's a lot of dancing, a lot of singing, some snake handling.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I got to like I really enjoyed exposing myself to all of this stuff.
Right.
I just couldn't help but be curious about it because I knew as a kid there was contradiction in front of me that was not spoken about.
Right.
It was not acknowledged, but I felt it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I knew that it was like, all right, so like around me, there's like, you know, Mother Earth and, you know, the Great Spirit, right? And then over here, there's some organized religion, which to me, you know, when people are like, I'm not, you know, I don't care for religion or whatever, to me, I feel that a lot of that is, I don't care for rules. I don't like being told what to do. And it makes me feel confined. And when I'm feeling confined like that, there's like a duality exposed in me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you know, for you know, people that say don't do caffeine or meat or alcohol or whatever. It's like you can have a little bit of a spiritual experience off of 2 martinis, let's say, because in that space, like you can take a break from yourself and just kind of feel what's going on.
Explain.
It's a tool.
The martini.
The martini is simply a tool to help one get out of the way of themselves and to have an intimate experience with what's going on.
I see.
You know what I mean?
So
and that's why people seek religion.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
You know?
To get out of the way? To get out of the way of themselves?
Yeah.
So they're trying to
and
remove...
usually it's fear-based.
Okay. Because they're
not usually, but I mean,
I think you're going real high-minded on that one.
People seek something that's outside of them because they feel that it's not in them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if they hear something or if they're with someone and that feels good, sure, I'll take it on. Sure,
Yeah.
I'll believe that. I'll think that way. I'll follow those rules. I'll dress like this. I'll think like this. I'll talk like this. I'll associate with people like this.
Sure.
Right?
I totally
On both
get
sides.
that. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times, however, we really are just doing what we've been taught. And I think that
Yeah.
that's one of the very defining ways that we can separate those two. Religion, I feel like, is something that you're taught and you accept, and spirituality is inlet, and you can be taught that too. I mean, obviously, you could have your parents are spiritual,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's all they
You can
teach you,
be
and they never teach you.
influenced.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you can find your way there, but oftentimes, again, we're kind of back during this time where everything was coming into being, where you find that because what you were taught does no longer fit. And so you're seeking something outside of those very definitive parameters that you were offered as a child, right? And so you find yourself somewhere else. And I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously, I think we find religion because we were trying to understand the world around us. We
On a
really
great big
were
scale.
trying to figure out the material world.
Yeah.
Right. And so we went out and we started figuring that, hey, somebody's responsible for this beautiful mountain that I see before me. Someone's responsible for that horrendous storm that just took my house out. That kind of thing, right?
Right.
So we know that that's kind of
Yeah.
how that came about. But we got to this point where we're like, okay, that some of those explanations work. I can accept that.
Yeah.
But then I can't accept some of these rules. They just don't make sense.
It
or
just
they're
doesn't
just
feel
too
right.
confining.
Yeah.
And so then we sought, I'm just going to say, we were looking for something out of the heart space.
Something.
Something.
And I just feel like I something that I just heard just now, right? in when the word religion or religious is come into play, right?
Right.
I feel I heard you say someone. And
Someone.
then when spirituality came into play, you said something.
Yeah.
And I thought that was beautiful and way interesting.
It is.
What is that someone and what is that something?
Very good.
Could it be the same energy? Can the someone, because that could be a whole other show or a whole other conversation, which we do all the time, right? But can the someone and the something come from the same place?
I don't see why not.
And be the same energy, right? Because that is my experience.
Okay.
And it is my feeling. And that's what I call the energy of love.
The energy of love.
Right.
And a lot of people, even in the spiritual world, might call that same
and that
thing
can get
source.
Universe. Or Indians, natives call it the Great Spirit.
Right.
Or, but I really noticed that creative consciousness, right? I just noticed that the parallel, and I thought it was beautiful, the someone and the something, because in all religions it is an entity, and in spirit world it's greater than an entity.
Yeah, it's like maybe you're right though. Maybe it is the exact same thing without a face.
Coming from the same place without a color.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Without a structure.
Right.
Maybe it is
non-material.
Right. It is nothing, and in that no thing is everything.
I like it.
Man, we're just surfing hard now, right?
Well, I want to read again from our friendly Chat GPT, or there's a dictionary here too. But when comparing spirituality to religion, the way that we're looking at it is individualism versus institutionalism. So what that means is spirituality is often seen as more individualized. It's that personal exploration, which, by the way, as we transition into this idea of spiritual awakening, that's really going to become a big part of it, because if everyone's having a different experience, which I think is the case, we are so individual. Our experience is not only on this planet, but in life. And I'm using life as in more than one lifetime. Is so vast. How is it that we could possibly ever think that we could be fit into one box that is comfortable for everyone with all of this vastness of experience? Now, we're not going to go non-dualism yet, because that's coming.
I'm fully just like, I'm twitching over here.
Let's not go there yet. Because, there's so many ways that we can spin out on this, right? So let's not spin out yet. Let's try and stay here.
Okay.
Religion, on the other hand, is typically associated with organized, institutionalized systems of belief, practices, and communities, where where
there's rules.
Very opposite of what it is that I just said. It's not personal. You don't get to necessarily bring in yourself. You've joined the group, and the way that group thinks about things. So that's one. Flexibility versus dogmatism. Spirituality is definitely very flexible. And obviously dogma isn't. Experience versus tradition. I'm going to bring my personal experience in here.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't want to call yourself, and I just don't like labels. They're too confining for me.
Right. They can be limiting.
They're very limiting.
I can shut myself off from the magic of religion or spiritual goodness by labeling, is what I feel.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's just such a very convenient way to shut people down. It's if you try to name me, And especially even if I name myself, then my job is to stay within that
Stay
box,
within the,
you know, of that definition. It's way too difficult for me. So I'd rather just not do it.
Yeah.
And if you must, you can do it for me.
Totally
you know,
cool.
you can do it to me. You can call me whatever you want.
I'm gonna let you.
I am gonna let
I'm gonna let you, man. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We can just chalk it up as like, I may be spiritually promiscuous. You know what I mean? I'm spiritually promiscuous because it is all.
I love that.
It is all beautiful. Whether, you know, one feels that they're religious, you know, because I've met many religious people that have had a profound impact on my life in a spiritual way.
Yeah.
There are those out there too, you know, like,
Sure.
like to me, it's all. Well, I had the most beautiful thought earlier as it pertained to.
Did I squash it? Like,
No,
wait,
not at all. So much goes on in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
In how we talk, and I'm actually doing my best to not go, ooh, you know. So we have to come back around. But it's like, you know, oh, I know.
There it is.
I know what I felt was
Good.
Was religion, right? Can be. Maybe a second-hand experience.
Absolutely.
Right?
So, in other words, let's not take
It's passed
personal
down.
experience out of it. It's just simply
The personal experience begins from something handed down from someone.
The personal experience begins from something being handed
down from someone.
You think?
It can be.
By the way, I hate these chairs. I put out on the internet, like, which chairs should we be?
We're figuring it out.
I do not like these chairs. The chairs are going to go. But you were saying.
No worries.
Something being handed down. Personal experience?
Well, no. Like what I'm feeling is, and I'm pretty excited about chairs now. I want to look. I love chairs. You know, like when we have a spiritual experience, right? Like, you know, when I'm cruising through my day, and for me, it's just as simple as this. When I'm cruising through my day and I see a butterfly, my thinking stops. I'm free from me. I'm one with that butterfly, all its beauty, all its magic, and around it is all the rest of the beauty and the magic, right?
Right.
I feel I'm having, in a way, a spiritual experience. I'm one with something spiritual, something greater than me, something outside of me. And that's an intimate first-hand experience.
Okay.
If I go and sit in a building on a particular day around other people doing the same thing, and I go through all the, you know, like sometimes I love to go to a Catholic church because I love the ritual of it, you know, the structure of it,
the ceremony.
And like to me, like it's you know, it's kind of witchy. You know what I mean? Like it's ceremonial, it's symbolic, it's, you know, it's this and it's that, and I love all of that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm having a completely different experience than the average person in that space. I didn't grow up Catholic.
Okay.
Right? But I love all of that movement, and I'm more like in awe. Right? Now, every once in a while, they can bring in what I feel is some spiritual new age influence. And this has been my experience over, let's say, the past couple of years.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Right? Is my girlfriend is Catholic.
Okay.
Right? And she was raised Catholic, and, you know, like oftentimes, like I love when people are like, I was raised Catholic and I'm Irish and I'm Italian, right? and they can say it as if they're like, you know, that sort of helped them be behind the eight ball in this moment right now or whatever, and great duality comes from it. But it's like every once in a while I've gone to church with her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, it's a totally different experience for me. I'm hearing something totally different. And the first time I went with her, I'm like, wow, that feels really open-minded. Like, what they're talking about feels like it's less structured, it's less rigid, less sticking to the rules, and there may be some openness to their orthodox, structured, and orthodox may not be the right word, to their whatever it is they're trying to convey. I felt that the people up there, and mainly the two preacher dudes, right, were
priests.
And the priests, and no disrespect, you know what I mean?
I love it because you didn't grow up on this
them all,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
And I love conversing with them.
It's just a label.
And I love their garb. I don't want to call it a costume, but I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
you're definitely experiencing it differently than she has experienced
way, because
it, right?
I don't have the influence of tradition.
Right. And everything else that she probably either respected or disrespected growing up.
Yeah.
Because we do seem to come full circle. We rebel, and lots of times we find ourselves right back there. Maybe some of us never rebel, but you're talking about it in a way that you've brought this outside view to something that's happening. As a 5-year-old, if no one ever tells you exactly what this means, I didn't know when I was having bread and wine.
Yeah.
That was a symbol of something, because why tell the 5-year-old that, really this is like the body of Jesus that you're partaking of?
Yeah.
I still don't get it. I didn't wait around to try and figure that one out.
Hey, I know there's a big word. It's called a really big word, right? And that
communion?
Yeah, well, like that whole movement, right? With the bread and the wine.
Yeah.
Right? That I know that movement to be called transubstantiation. Transubstantiation.
Tell me more about this big word. This really big, awesome word.
It has to do with like, and I learned it from my philosophy professor buddy.
Okay.
Right? And because 2 days a week he would come into my cabinet shop.
Okay.
And we would build his stuff, and he asked me to audit his class.
Cool.
Intro to Philosophy, and it's my only collegiate experience.
Oh, okay.
Right? So 2 days a week, I would, leave my cabinet shop and pretend like I was, a student.
Like an 18-year-old?
Only I wasn't 18. I was probably like 33 or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But it was Intro to Philosophy, and that was one of the things that I learned, is that the belief and the association and the symbolism of that movement is what's called transubstantiation.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all I remember.
That's all you remember?
Right. But
okay.
really what I love is the word. I just love that word, transubstantiation,
okay,
right?
Now I've got to look up the word, because we can't. you can't leave us hanging. Okay. I should
sorry,
have been putting
you guys. I love all you out there. I'm sorry I'm limited on my transubstantiation. But so whenever I observe that, whenever I go there, I just love observing and feeling.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in that space, I'm able to feel, and I'm able to feel people and their feelings and stuff like that. So and then also too, the other thing that I keep hearing in our talk here is a spiritual being having a human experience.
Sure.
Through either something spiritual or religious. And both can be firsthand and secondhand experiences.
Absolutely. So
you know what I mean?
I think that if there is, and if there remains, because I believe that a lot of us have found our way
Yeah.
intermingle these two.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have, obviously,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So I think that a lot of us have.
Or
I think that there's
that was like what I saw. That was what I heard.
when you
When I was experiencing that,
Yeah.
that was what I heard, and I was in complete awe. And you know what? I loved it.
what did you hear?
I heard spirituality and religion merging.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
You know
think,
what I mean?
well, so we're
And
going
it
to
totally
do this
caught me off guard.
because I think you're right. I think that there are a lot of people who have found their way to that. I think that a
Yeah.
lot of religious people who have been brought up religious and who are still in the church would say that they're spiritual beings having
A religious human experience.
a human experience. That they're did I say that right? That they're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
I think that most people can buy into that. I may be wrong. I'm not in the church, and therefore I don't have a lot of knowledge as to what's happening there.
Totally.
For the most part. And the only reason that I'm thinking that I have a lot of knowledge about what's happening in the so-called spiritual world is because I'm a part of some Facebook groups. and
yeah.
And I'm a part of those groups because I'm trying to understand, first of all, how it is that we're evolving at this moment.
Yeah.
Again, I understood it back then. I don't necessarily find myself searching
Yeah,
like I
or
did when I was
seeking.
in my
It's-
20s. I'm not seeking
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
So
It's like
I
a
have to go.
curious awareness, you know. It's like, you know, and that's one of the beauties of like the internet and a platform or whatever is like, you know, you can check out, because I've been a part of some groups in the past too.
Don't go anywhere.
Yep.
Transubstantiation.
It's a long word, like 14 million
It says
letters.
it's a noun, and it's of the Catholic Church in particular. The conversion of the substance of the Eucharistic elements
The
into
wafer.
the body
yeah.
and blood of Christ at consecration, only the appearances of bread and wine still remaining. So I don't know what that means. What was it before? Now that it's bread and wine, I know that it's a symbol. It's so what I called communion. There's this bigger word for it called transubstantiation. It's the idea behind teaching of the bread and wine in the Eucharist become the body and blood of Christ. So, and
which
I wasn't
is symbolic in belief and all of that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the moment that it is put into me is the moment it goes from, let's say,
maybe, and perhaps maybe I'm supposed to take on more Christ-like features once I take of his body and blood.
perhaps something like that. Like to me, it's where the action of something turns into something cosmic, or the physical element of something. You know, the moment I put it in me,
Yeah.
and the moment I believe this way and feel this way, it becomes cosmic. It becomes divine.
Sure.
It becomes spiritual.
Okay.
Because all
You
things.
definitely took that to 360. I like it. I like it.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, let's also cruise over to a place too, right, where every once in a while religious folks can bring in something spiritual, right? And let's bring in a practice.
Well, I think that's what you were just saying with
Yeah.
that particular trans.
substantiation,
That one.
right? And what I'm gonna and I love you, Professor Jack. Thank you for
I love you, Professor Jack.
thank
too.
you for-
philosophy. Those were some of my favorite classes. As a matter of fact, I thought about getting a double minor in philosophy.
Oh yeah.
I just couldn't pay the bills with it, or
Yeah.
I think I could have just hung out in philosophy classes all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Because I used to rock climb with my dear friend, right? And he was a philosophy major too. He has a degree in it and stuff like that. And my little rock climbing wall that I'm doing right now
Yeah.
is in the spirit of him.
Okay, what's his name?
His name is Warren.
Shout out
I
to
love
him.
you, Warren.
Okay.
Love you, bro. So,
I don't remember my philosophy teacher's name. My intro, I don't remember any of them, but I had one who taught a lot of the philosophy classes. with the tweed jacket and the,
Yeah.
you know, the leather elbows.
Oh,
the whole,
classic
he had the
style.
whole look, right?
like that was like Three's Company style jacket.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I didn't appreciate him in the beginning, though. I didn't. It's, you know, so it was just like, I don't like this guy, you know, because he was just the way he presented. But I really came to appreciate him later on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can do no shout outs. I don't remember his name.
But in the
And
spirit,
he doesn't remember me either, so it's okay.
in the spirit, we can shout out. You know
Shout
what I
out
mean?
philosophy professor, and I'm not telling you where. So, okay.
Because we are, you know, part of what we're doing is talking about our love of truth. And isn't that what philosophy means? The love of truth?
Well, I guess.
Or
I think it's
something
definitely
like
the
that.
study of ideas and truth.
Yeah, it's...
Let's bring this back on to this idea. So truth, even that idea, it's very personal. It's very individual.
Right.
So,
and it must be firsthand. It must be an intimate experience.
I think that's the only way that it can be, unless we're talking about religion, which is something that's handed down, as you say. Right? Secondhand information.
Yeah, and the religious people feel that in transubstantiation you can find your truth.
Well,
you can touch it.
They don't only feel it there; they feel it pretty much in a lot of places, and I think that's kind of the idea of religion. That's the dogma of religion. It is that, hey, you don't need to go and search.
Yeah.
I've got all your answers right here.
Yeah.
In this book, here is where all of your answers lie. That's not only not for me. I don't think that that's even for the religious people, because sometimes you're going to have questions that perhaps aren't in the answers aren't necessarily in that book. But you know where they are?
In you.
They are. Like
they are in you.
So we can go to non-dualism if you'd like at this point, or we can just kind of.
You felt me itching, huh?
And who are we, right? We have to then get into that question of who are we? If all of the answers are within me, all of my answers are within me, all of your answers are within you, and all of Connie's answers are within her, and we all are walking around here with our own tome of answers, then
why are we so confused and so much chaos and division and conflict?
Well, that kind of...
If all the answers are in us, why are we around? Why are we experiencing all this suffering?
Well, do you think that we could all just experience our own tome of answers and work well with others? Could there be this real community of love and acceptance if everyone is walking around with their own ideas of truth and understanding?
Well, let's say, what is the possibility of that everyone's own ideas seem to be rather similar?
And here we arrive.
Seem to be rather similar, right?
They are, and there's obvious... Well, they do to me. I will say that's my experience.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
Right.
Like when we go deep enough,
they're
when we
similar.
Listen, it's, we're having the same experience.
And one of those things is that people want to be loved. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when people are like, hey, you know, what's going on with you? And I'm like, well, bro, I'm just trying to live in love and lead a spiritual life, whatever that looks like right here, right now. Because it changes all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
At this moment, at this very, very moment.
Right here.
It's gone.
Right here. Yeah. Right? And, you know, when you get all microscopic like that, that's pretty heavy. That's in a whole other deal.
Right.
Right? But if I can just kind of relax with it all and be still with it all without me being in the center, without me.
So do you think that this idea of awakening is awakening to this realization? When people are having these awakenings, these spiritual are they awakening to the understanding
of a broader perspective.
Okay.
Now, it's a whole different deal that when, and people call it downloads or uploads or
lots of those going on.
blah blah blah, right?
In 2024.
And that's like or 2012 or Y2K or whatever. I mean, I remember when Y2K was going down, I was tugboating in San Francisco. We pulled out this Royal Caribbean cruise ship, right? And all it was a party in San Francisco Bay.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. No lights went down. It was bullshit, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like people through, there's always been some form of new age. There's always been some form of awakening. There's always been some form of something's going on. Well, yeah, because ever since something occurred, something's been going on.
Yeah.
It's always been this complete expansion. Call it what you will. Call it, Kundalini. Call it transubstantiation, whatever. To me, however you find it is all that matters. However you find it is, as long as someone finds their truth, that's what matters. And that they know why that is their truth.
Right.
And that's also one of the greatest things I learned from Professor Jack. You know what I mean? Because, I was in the Bible Belt, man. I was in Arkansas.
Okay.
That's a radically, that's a pretty, I learned a lot there.
Sure.
Right? And so I remember him bringing people up into class, right? Like down the class, and it was like this amphitheater-like thing. It was so cool. And people were like, on Facebook or whatever on their laptops in class, and me, I'm like, God, your parents are paying for you to be here and stuff like that, right? It was totally cool. But he would bring people up to the front of the room, and he would be like, do you believe in God? And they would be like, yeah. And he would go, why? And they're like, well, because that's how I was raised.
Because that's how I was raised.
That's what my parents.
That's the common answer.
Yeah,
right?
And
that's our common experience.
One of the greatest things I took from that, and I took notes, and I still have them. I'll share them with you one day, right? Is like,
I do not want to see your notes.
Oh, they're great. I really enjoy.
Are they like pretty? And did you make little drawings?
No,
art
I
something?
I really enjoy penmanship. Like I really enjoy writing.
I've actually seen some really pretty notes.
Yeah,
I do understand what you and
yeah.
I also think everybody thinks that their notes are pretty outrageously wonderful.
Well, I enjoy taking notes. Like when we do our thing separate, from.
Don't worry about it. I'm going to frame your notes,
Cool.
Michael. Bring them over. We're going to put them back here on the wall or something.
I love my notes, right? So the biggest thing that I learned in that was I need to know why.
Why?
Why I believe whatever I believe. Why I feel whatever I feel. I must know that. It must be intimate.
Okay.
I can't get it from someone or something else.
Right.
I must discover that on my own. And I'm like really big into that.
Had you discovered it at that time?
Oh, yeah.
So you had a first-hand experience at this moment that you're in this amphitheater talking about.
Oh yeah,
God
that
or
just made sense. That just made sense from like a collegiate scholastic point of view.
Right.
And for me, that was formal.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wasn't in the mountains of New Mexico looking up at the stars or whatever. Like it was a whole different arena, and I just really gravitated toward it.
So, do you believe in God?
Man, that's a hardcore question.
Well, you brought it up.
Right?
You and Professor Jack?
Yeah, Professor Jack.
You and Professor Jack. You guys did it.
I always call it God because it's a one-syllable word, and everyone can relate to it.
Right.
Right? And that word God seems to be free from the labels.
Or does it have a whole bunch of labels?
Sort of. That depends on the person that it's being discussed with, because oftentimes when the word God is spoken up, a waterfall of labels and images and blah, blah, blah can come into play, and then unfortunately the conversation can be ruined. What I can share with you is that I got to go through something and be present with something that moved me beyond belief.
Okay. But
right?
beyond belief,
So
meaning
meaning my
outside of belief?
experience moved me beyond belief. Not that I had a lot of belief beforehand, because I sort of feel like all roads go to the same place,
Right.
right? But when I got to observe my energy separate from my physical being and watch my skin deflate like a balloon, there was no belief. It was a knowing.
Okay. I understand. So you, again, had this personal experience with
Radically intimate.
radically up close and personal with
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll call it God just because it's simple. I really like the energy of love.
Okay.
I like to, to me, God is the energy of love.
Right. So when you're having these conversations with people and they're talking about God, do you have any ideas or issues with them using God?
No, not at all.
Okay. And somehow you get to God.
And then there's a smile. And then it's like, hey, how are you? And then, like, for me, it's really just about captivating a presence of,
Okay.
of a human heart.
I understand.
You know,
I get it.
That
I
can
do.
easily roll into, me being asked, do you believe in God? Or do you...
Do they think that you're going to start trying to like recruit them into your religion when you do that?
No, oftentimes, if because then it can, because I may be able to share about being present with death and stuff like that. And then that's oftentimes when the other person will feel the desire to share their belief system.
Because you talk about your near-death experience.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Just because of being present in that space.
Right. I
Right?
understand. I
And,
understand.
and oftentimes, if oftentimes it can go deeper than that, right? And so the other person can have like, God, the thing that comes to my mind is I was observing this beautiful older couple, right?
Okay.
And we're still in the big box place.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just darling, right? And they were older, like 85,
Okay, good.
and I could just feel their love, and I could see their love, and I could see their connectivity. And this is a beautiful story. And so like we're in like the cold section, like where the fruits and vegetables are.
Right.
And I struck up, or, whatever happened. Next thing you know, this older gentleman is telling me about his experience. It had to, and I don't remember it totally, but it had to do with death or something traumatic, right? And where he was from in Maine, he was referred to as Happy Someone.
Oh.
Right? So just right there, the connectivity of we have the same nickname.
Wasn't
which
Happy
is,
Gilmore.
No, negative. Go to your home, ball. It wasn't that at all. But and so he felt the need to ask me. He was like, do you know Jesus?
Okay.
Right?
Right.
To go right there.
Right.
And so I navigated with that, and
Surfed a little bit.
yeah, I navigated with that, and then but without rebuttal, without a desire to say or defy or anything like that. Like, it's important, and what I felt in this man was the same thing
Which is?
that I feel in me.
Oh.
The energy of love is the same energy that I felt in him. We just called it two different names.
You guys had already connected too. I mean,
Yeah.
you had found that commonality in your
Yeah.
names. And so both of you were open. And so that was an easy way for you to move into that space, which is beautiful when that happens,
It
right?
was a beautiful now.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I
Yeah.
totally understand where you're at. And we wish that we could all get there.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
just get
love that
away
stuff.
from the ideas behind you and me and move into the knowledge that we have, that we really are having one experience.
Yeah.
That one experience, which you mentioned earlier, where we all want love.
Yeah.
Non-duality, right?
We all want
speaks
unity.
to this, that
Yeah.
we are one.
Yeah.
That we are one. And it's a very interesting idea, and how people find themselves experiencing that
Yeah.
to the point to where they can embrace it. Because
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily an easy one to embrace, because we've been taught our entire life.
As a result of tradition and condition.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember I held my own babies up to the mirror and said their names, right?
Yeah.
So we are taught from a very young age that we are individuals.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who really love the idea of individualism. They like really, so they wouldn't have an easy time with this idea of, well, we are one, obviously, for many different reasons. But that happens as a result of that personal experience. It isn't something people, you might hear it 1,000 times, but until you have the personal experience where you become absolutely sure that, wow, we really are. We're like this one thing.
It's all connected.
That's absolutely connected.
It's all connected.
And I don't want to go too deep into that, because obviously there is a whole idea and philosophy behind that. But it'll take
or
us
some
off.
science.
It'll take us.
Or,
this is one of those things that are moving us back out into space again. And I want to kind of stay here in terms of the spiritual awakening, which obviously that would be if ever you are going along in life thinking, hey, I'm this individual and I love being this individual and I am who I am and this ego is real, really me. Unfortunately, I think we all, when we travel too far down that road, we do find loneliness. We do find this inability to connect. We find ourselves out here going, what is this all about? I'm so unhappy. Let me bring in all of these things that at least make me feel comfortable, like anger and hatred,
resentment,
and division, and all of this stuff that we are experiencing at such a large level right now.
And some of that in that space can be like a release. You know what I mean? Like ruminating in the negative aspect of one's egoism. You know, that can be, you know, the human side of me is fully aware that that may not be a healthy place to play, but sometimes it feels real good. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't mean, but you know what I'm saying? I don't need to explain
I'm
it.
not going to, well, I think I like that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because for me,
Gotta
that
be
isn't
aware of that
something-
shit.
Well, and I'm not. Because it doesn't, it feels, not to say I've never experienced it.
Yeah.
And I had a really great lesson very early on in life. And I've always been very grateful for having that lesson, because I did sink very low. And I experienced some of that energetic, just crappiness where it feels really slimy. And you know, this is not a good place for me. This is not where I want to play. And there's never any product. That's the problem with it. Like there is never any, I'm never rising. I'm never solving my problem of feeling isolation or loneliness. Nothing, there's nothing there. So it's just, you're just playing at being really low and angry and unhappy, and there's no,
and
there's
it's
no out.
It's very illusory.
There's no out. And so you have to go like, okay, let me pull myself out of this.
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, the reason I was there was because I was looking for vengeance.
Yeah.
I was looking for vengeance, and there was no product there because that person had no idea that I was experiencing such darkness, such anger, such heartache.
Right.
Right?
Right.
They had no clue. And that was the really eye-opening awareness of that situation. It's like, wait a minute, I'm only hurting me.
Right.
I feel like crap. Right.
And what a beautiful gift to see that.
Oh, no, it was... I was very young, like in
Yeah.
my teens. And I knew when I came out of that I had received a gift.
Yeah.
That life had served that up to me very young, so that I would never have to mistake never have to deal with the fact that could be a solution
Yeah.
for anything.
Yeah.
No solution.
It's not.
Not into hurting myself. And so we'll just move on from here. But what I think that when we do get to these places, even like that, where you awaken from this idea that, ooh, hatred is a good thing, vengeance is a good thing, where you awaken to the other side of that, what is our responsibility there? Because I feel like a lot of people are having spiritual awakenings, which I assume is awareness. What is your responsibility with this newfound awareness that, oh, there is something else. Oh, I'm not who I thought I was. Oh, vengeance feels like shit. What is your responsibility? Not just yours. What is our responsibility? I'm not talking about you personally, Happy. But what is our responsibility?
I fully know that.
I love that there are so many awakenings. I do.
Or the fact that people are like, people can look at me and go, I'm in the process of awakening.
I'm in the process of awakening.
Right. Or, I'm in the process of discovery. Or they know that they're on a path.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, when you see, you can't unsee. When you discover your truth, you can't undiscover it. Whatever it is, right? Like when you see...
Like it's with you.
Yeah, like when you see the truth in your own falseness of your life,
yeah,
you can't unsee that. I know, speaking from my own personal experience, when, I started to know, but didn't know where it came from or why or how or whatever, like it was a little overwhelming. And then, a neurotic movement engaged with it, right? So I had to allow myself to trust it.
Yeah. Okay.
In some ways, right?
And in trusting, that was...
Well,
What'd you do with it?
It's like it becomes an action, right? And it really, it really came to be after my accident. Like so much of this stuff came to be after my accident, and in spirit world, you can call it 3D, 4D, 5D, blah, 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 and all there, right?
Right.
But, when I got hit in the head in one state of mind, and then I came to and woke up, when my eyes opened in another state of mind, I instantly knew I was modified.
Okay.
Let's say, acutely dialed in. And so at that point, there was no thinking about the responsibility. Now, this is my experience, okay?
Right.
It was just action. And we were talking about it before, like, I can't not love life.
Right.
It is my responsibility to love life, to love everyone, everything, everywhere, in every way, because it was clearly shown to me that was my truth. Right? And I remember, strapped in my hospital bed, not knowing how I got there, how long I'd been there, all of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I heard that my purpose is to have a positive impact on the lives of other people. Right. And that's it. And I didn't have a desire to ask why or understand what that meant or go, how do I do that?
Right.
There is no how do I do that.
Right.
I just know, I hear, I feel, it's in me. And when you're out of your own way, all of that is easily accessible.
Right.
You can just touch it.
Right.
It flows through you. That's the spirit in you, I feel, flowing through you inside and outside. Because you can see, like, when you start to see yourself in other people, you're in spirit world.
Right.
You're in a world of love. You're in a world of compassion.
Now, do you think that most people are having that same idea that, I mean, are we all coming out of these awakenings, which, by the way, I don't know if we define that or not, or if we even are talking about the same thing. This is coming from my Facebook groups, where
Yeah.
it seems to me, I was trying to bring this up to modern day era. I think our awakenings during the new age was the awareness that we should seek. So that we should go out and find. That's where all the personal development and all the
And that was
personalities came about. And we were buying Deepak Chopra and listening to
gurus are coming over.
Absolutely.
Exploitation is occurring.
Some absolutely.
Yep.
Some people are led astray. Some actually just find a new door to open and walk through. And so there was a lot of that. And there was a lot of personal experiences as well. But now what I find is that people are having these downloads. These things are happening. There's big buzzing
or maybe they're born with it and don't know any different, and it may be common sense to some.
It could be. It could be. There's a lot of fear, it seems to me, around it.
Yeah.
And so there is this idea that it is something other than simply waking up. And if you're waking up from something, if you're waking up, that means you're waking up from something, moving into something else. I find there has to be some transformation from sleep to awake, right? So now that you've awakened, what do? Do you go and cook breakfast and have a cup of coffee, go for a morning jog? Or do you just simply speak about it, let people know that you've had some experience, and sit and wait for another experience? What is it that is happening? It seems to me, and I may be wrong, and I'm having this show in very large part because I would like to hear from some of these people who talk about and who've had these firsthand spiritual awakenings, whether they're scary.
I can't wait to hear that
scary.
Or read that.
I want
tell
to
us
hear.
about it, you beautiful people.
Absolutely.
Tell us about what, because especially over here, no judgment, no opinion,
absolutely.
nothing but love and good vibes. Tell us whatever it is you feel.
So, and in large
versus
part,
think.
Because, or what you just simply experience. There's a lot of experiencing.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's feeling or thinking, just something's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's feelings that occur through the experience and afterwards. It's where thinking comes into play, that it can,
where you're analyzing exactly what's happened, and then I'm trying to figure
or it can be
out.
Categorized or minimized or compartmentalized or whatever. It's like what we want to hear is their experience with God. Let's say.
Okay, so I think you're making some assumptions there, but it's okay if your experience wasn't with God.
Sorry. Yeah, or non-God, or
whatever,
Buddha, or Allah, or Jehovah, or whatever you want to call it or don't call it,
or whatever.
We want to hear your experience.
Absolutely, and that's my point. Is because I don't think that this is necessarily a
it's not isolated
road that they're traveling. I do want to hear about it. And again, whether it's the fear, whether there is some fear surrounding, or there's no fear whatsoever, and nothing but joy, abundance, love, and
whatever. Just share
whatever it is. And we actually have a place where you can leave comments now at the show. So please leave comments about what you think about the show. If you want us to cover something, and absolutely if you want to come on and
or
share
have a question,
your experience with us.
Yeah,
I would love to hear it. And that's any numerous amounts of experience, whatever it is. Bring it on.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about it.
Yeah.
I don't know that we got to talk about our own spiritual awakenings today. I don't know that I find mine nearly as abrupt, as dramatic, as charged as yours, or even some of these that are being talked about online. I feel that mine have all happened over time.
Yeah.
Like the experience that I did share with you when I was, a teenager and experiencing all the muck. But I definitely want to talk about this again sometime. This is a big subject.
Okay.
And we want to do this again. We appreciate you guys coming on. If there is something that we left out, remember, comments. We'd love to have you. We're so glad that you join us.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. And I think we're kind of liking this ourselves. So come back and join us again here at the Way Hum, where we're trying to figure out
exploring.
Path, explorers on the path, getting ourselves home spiritually.
Let's pioneer and explore together.
Mentally.
Yeah.
On all levels. Yeah. It's all very important. It's all very important. And we're all trying to get there together.
Yeah.
There is a point here. There is a dharma. You do have a reason for being here.
Yeah.
I am not necessarily saying go out and find your purpose. What I am saying is there is an experience that many of us are having, and we want to talk about that, and we want to talk about what happens after that. Mm-hmm. So be sure, again, leave the comments. We appreciate your time here, and we would love for you guys to join us on all of our shows, and we would like to get to the point of dropping these once a week, every Friday.
We're working on it. We're working on
there.
it.
We'll let you know when we're there. Until then, thank you. Come back. Join us again.
Thank you. Have a beautiful evening.